Hey everybody, welcome to the Blacklist, the show where we interview the elite. Cody is the second guy to come into the Blue Wire Studios as a recurring guest.
Come on.
So first guest that was here, second time was Sean. That's just he was here yesterday, but you're the second guy, so I appreciate you being here. Second
Man,
time.
it's a pleasure. It's always good to be with you. Come on.
So tell us a little for the people that probably don't know you. You're the founder of Embrace the Lion. You also have a mastermind, which is called Roundtable, right?
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about your background, which I know you were a pastor, right? And now you're crushing it in business.
Yeah.
But give everybody a little bit of brief of who Cody Jefferson is.
I mean, first and foremost, there's a lot of things I can say, but I'm Stetson's dad. That is the primary role of my life. Outside of that, yeah, we run a coaching consulting company called Embrace the Lion. We founded that in 2017. We've got about 4,000 guys all around the world helping good men become great, focused on life and business. We've got a mastermind called Roundtable where we focus on 4 pillars: head, heart, health, and habits. Head, how you treat your thoughts and your belief system. Your heart, how you treat your relationships. Your health, how you treat your body. And your habits, basically the daily container of your time and how you treat that and how you respect it. On the backside of that, I'm a partner in a few companies. I sit on the board of a few companies. We're in everything from residential solar, commercial solar, roofing, apparel, full stack marketing, business brokerage. So I get to travel, get to speak, get to do fun stuff like this.
Yeah, dude, you've spoken how many times by now?
I
Hundreds?
mean, yeah, I mean, we're talking over 500 stages, but you also have to remember that for 13 years, I was in occupational ministry. So I was speaking 3 to 4 times a week on different stages across the country. And so
Yeah.
the parlay from occupational ministry into speaking and business was a pretty natural switch for me.
And why, why create a community around men? Because I was talking to somebody yesterday, and their answer was more so because there really isn't much of community around men today, and there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity and all that type of stuff. But you could have chosen any career path, like you said, you're on the board of a lot of companies, but you're like a big thing that you're known for is
Yeah.
helping men become great. So
Yeah.
so why that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what is it? 76% of all suicides are men. Second leading cause of death of men under the age of 35. And so there is something to be said about the idea that men need community,
Hmm.
right? Is one thing that we're a culture so desperate to be known, but we'll settle every day for being seen. And so when a man can find himself in community with a group of brothers who see him, who hold him accountable, who champion the man that he can be, they say that a man without purpose is a ship without a rudder. And so I think we've been sold an idea of what success is. And when we haven't had that modeled inside of most of our homes, we start to attach that to different forms of identity, never really figuring it out for ourselves. So certainly there are markers for success, and there are things that we can look to financially, physically, emotionally, spiritually. All of our guys follow the same spiritual path. Being a pastor for so long, and I would say I'm still a pastor. I just am not behind the pulpit anymore.
Yeah.
When we can find what that path is for guys and help hold them accountable to that, there's something really magical that happens. And when a man finds himself and builds confidence, and confidence is really nothing more than keeping your word to yourself, and then that certainty is built when that confidence and that identity is shaped towards something that we can see quantifiable results in.
Yeah.
So when we can create the environment for that and give the strategy and the accountability, but also the camaraderie and the celebration, because men need celebration from one another, we find a real winning scenario.
Before Embrace the Lion and before you created your community, did
Yeah.
did Cody Jefferson need one? And
Co-
did he join any?
So that was the really interesting part of being in ministry from the time that I was 19 until 2017 when I was, 33 maybe. The thing about getting involved in any profession that young, especially when you're front-facing people, is that you start to form your identity and the basis of your identity around what it is that you do.
Yeah.
And I'm only worth loving if I'm useful. And success to me is tied to a certain system of metrics. And the hard part about being in leadership, specifically at a young age, but really at any time, is you're always looked at as the person who's supposed to have all the answers and supposed to have everything all together at all times. And you couple that with the idea that you're also leading people spiritually. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just a compounding effect of expectation and creating this really interesting addiction to affirmation and performance.
Right.
And so when I was in ministry, I had several friends who men in ministry who took their own lives. That was part of the reason for founding Embrace the Lion. In 2016, I actually went septic due to the stress and overwhelm. I went through a divorce in 2015-16. I lost 8 family members and friends over the course of that year, all very, very tragic, all very unrelated. But in the process, there was no space for me to actually feel anything. The loss was happening at such an extraordinary rate, and I'm leading all the funerals, and I'm hearing about men around me taking their own lives, and there was just no breathing room. And so I think so many men find themselves in a position where, like, you're just pushing the ball forward. There's really no satisfaction. There's no fulfillment. It's just what we know to do. And so it is, the conversation is always man up. The conversation is always get it together, one foot in front of the other, which is all well and good. As men, we are called to protect, to provide. We are called to lead. But in that, we're also called to care for ourselves because you can't continue to pour from an empty cup. So 2016, I ended up going septic. 3 days, unconscious. On the 3rd day, I did rise again. I'm just saying. That's a weird correlation. I'm just saying, listen, it happened. But I recognized that, my son was 1.5 at the time. And I go into the bathroom of this hospital, 25 pounds lighter.
Oh, wow.
And I'm looking at myself and I'm like, is this the legacy you're going to leave your son? He's not going to know you, but he's going to know that you gave everything for everyone and sacrificed your soul on the altar of some self-perceived success, which is where we find a lot of men.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, no, this isn't what I want. I grew up with an amazing dad who also worked a lot. And I thought that that's how you express love. I provide and I work.
Yeah.
And I make the mistake of saying, this is all for you. I'm doing all of this for you. I'm doing all of this for my family. The problem is you're just exacerbating a trauma that existed when you were a kid because your parents didn't make a lot of money. So you're trying to solve that problem. Meanwhile, all you really needed was healthy, whole parents who loved you and gave you that safe place to be able to grow and to mature into who it is that you're called to be. And so that's what the role of, Embrace the Lion is in so many men's lives, is helping good men become great so that they can be the husbands, the parents, the co-parents, the business owners, the founders that they're called to be, the athletes, right? So.
And you said something that I think I think is very prevalent in today's space. So, are you familiar with like Myron Gaines from like the Fresh and Fit podcast?
Sure.
Okay, so he says something along the lines of what you said, which is basically, you don't really matter unless you perform as like a man, right?
Sure.
You're only valuable if you're useful, right? And do you agree with that or no?
So I think it's a twofold thing. I think it's a both and. I don't think it's either or. In marketplace, absolutely, you're defined by the value that you bring to market.
Yeah.
Right. So sure. But also in your family, there's an intrinsic value that's given, I believe, because I believe that we're here on purpose and for a purpose.
Right.
I'm a Christian, and so that is my entire worldview. So I believe that everyone inherently has value because you're here. So there are no accidents. Flip that, though, in marketplace, you are absolutely as valuable as the skill sets that you bring into market and the size and scope of the problems that you're able to solve.
Yeah.
Now, in the home, your value is in your capacity and ability to lead, which starts first and foremost with yourself.
Right, right.
So I would say that, yes, I do agree on most standpoints that, your value is contingent on your ability to provide and on your ability to solve problems.
Yeah. In the household, and this is something that I was learning later on, and I don't know who told me or not, but, there's a lot of men that believe, like, if they crush it in business or if they crush it financially and they provide for their family or anything like that, that's it, they're a provider and, like, they have everything else, like, done. What I learned is, like, you don't just need to be a provider. And I swear, I don't know if it was you, I don't know if somebody else told me, but you can't just be a provider to your family. Like that is probably the bare minimum. Like you have to actually be a husband. You have to be a father. You have to do things like that. Do you agree?
Yeah. It's interesting because, I do run a multitude of endeavors. And so my time is stacked consistently.
Yeah.
And nothing happens by chance in my world. And that's the way I've set it up and that's the way that I like it. On the backside of that, like I am a dedicated family man. I am on the board of my son's school and my stepson's school. I am the lead of Tiger Dads, which means that I assimilate all the men inside of our school to help them become more involved in the school system.
Yeah.
And so the reason for that is, I grew up I grew up watching superheroes, and I loved superheroes growing up. And I recognized that my son is either going to watch superheroes on a big screen or he's going to be led by one. And so in everything that I do, the way that I take care of my body, I'm in great shape. The way that I take care of my financial responsibilities, the way that I grow those endeavors, the ways in which I travel and I take him with me so that he can see and be a part of what it is that I'm doing, the way that I lead my home, the habit structures that he sees every single morning, that just becomes a part of his identity. We're Jeffersons. This is who we are, so this is what we do. It's not really predicated by a feeling or an emotional response or some sort of dopamine response. It's simply to confirm that this is who we say that we are. This is the outcome that we say that we want. So in the process, this is the identity that we take on.
Yeah.
And so I don't believe it's enough just to provide. Certainly, I think that's the bare minimum. But why would you stop there when there's so much capacity and there's so much potential inside of you to be a superhero to someone in your life?
Yeah, and you know what I love is like we were speaking because I was trying to get you on the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, does Thursday work?
Yeah.
And I forgot exactly what you said, but you're like, sorry, my son has X,
It's
right?
the last day of school.
Yeah, last day of school,
Yeah.
so I can't make it.
Yeah.
It's like that comes first before anything else.
It is so easy for me to say no.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for a lot of listeners today. We water down our yes so much, and we say yes to so many things because we're afraid of what we're going to miss in the opportunity spectrum. But understand that heaven does exist, and it's in your own backyard. And you cultivate that daily through building a very, very powerful no. There are boundaries that exist in my life that make, again, saying yes and no very, very simple. There's no complexity to it. So yeah, if it conflicts with my son's schedule or my stepson's schedule, it's just a no.
Yeah.
Love you. I think what you're doing is amazing, but I get this one time.
Yeah.
I had a dear friend who was getting married, and it was a very, very, very lavish, amazing engagement party that I had said yes to, black tie affair. And, it was a commitment that I had made, and then Stetson made state for wrestling.
Yeah.
And I had to call my friend, and he's a business partner as well, and say, I love you. I'm so proud of you. I can't wait to celebrate your marriage. Stetson made state, and it is that weekend. And his response, oh, well, yeah, of course that's where you'll be.
Yeah.
Like, it's when you set that standard, and everybody, every day you're setting a standard. It may not be the standard that you want to set for your life, but every day, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, you are setting a standard, and you are setting the benchmark for your kids. You are either setting a ceiling that they can break through, or you're setting a ceiling that they will never break through. And so for me, it is not enough just to say it, it's to model it every day.
To me, that's crazy because, like, I'm pretty sure you're human, right? Like, you can't do it every day. It's just to be on it all the time, like financially, to be on it, like physically, mentally. Like, I'm sure there's days where you're not crushing it. Is that true or no?
Well, sure. I mean, there are days that you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
every day do I feel like getting out of bed and going to the gym. Not every day do I feel like reading. Not every day do I feel like jumping into board meetings, because sometimes they're really dry and they're not fun.
Yeah.
When you're talking about business doesn't really have an emotional experience. Business is just metrics and KPI and juggling numbers and looking at a bunch of different things. But the people, right? People make business complex.
Yeah.
And so no, not every day do you wake up thinking, man, like today's going to be the day. I don't care how much you hype yourself up in the mirror and how much you beat on your chest and do your affirmations and all of that stuff. I think I believe in it, but some days you're just off.
Yeah.
And so on those days that I'm off, do I still crush it? Yes. But I still crush it because I don't base my day off of emotions.
Yeah.
I have a set schedule, and so the gym happens at 5:30. It is in my calendar as an appointment. I wouldn't miss this appointment with you, right? I wouldn't just show up, and then 5 minutes and be like, dude, I'm just really tired. Maybe tomorrow. I really want to, dude. I love you. I really want to do this, but maybe tomorrow. No, I'm here and I've made the commitment and I'm going to bring you my best.
Yeah.
So if it's in my schedule as an appointment, it's an appointment with me. So I'm going to bring my best to it. Why would I deny myself? The same thing is true with events for the kids. It's the same is true with Sarah. It's like, I'm not going to put it in my calendar just to say, you know what, maybe tomorrow. But most men will do that with their families. They will sacrifice everything that they love on the altar of whatever they think that self-perceived success is.
And what is that usually? The perceived success?
Yeah. I mean, it can be a lot of things for a lot of different men. I think a lot of it is wrapped up in ego. And so we look at financial success typically as like the thermostat of success in someone's life. And so we look at what someone has. We make the mistake of equating, working really hard and working really long hours with being effective.
Right.
I'm asked often how I'm able to carry so many endeavors on my plate, and I'm consistently adding companies to my portfolio. It's because I'm not interested in being the hardest worker anymore. I'm interested in being the smartest and making the most of my time and utilizing the resources that I have financially to be able to buy my time back. So one of my mentors, Dan Martell, he has a book on this, and it's his whole platform is how do you create leverage through buying back your time, through assistants, through C-level executives, through employees. Now the conversation of AI, making things very, very interesting. So for me, it's how do I become smart enough to know what is useful for me to take on and not to take on. Most men haven't figured that out. They're still in the grind phase, and a lot of guys never get out of that grind phase.
Yeah.
And so many work for other people, which is fine. I have no qualms with, salaried employees or anything else. I think that the problem is you get so wrapped up in the expectation of saying yes to so many things that the things that matter most get put on the back burner.
And how do you determine, or when your clients need help, how do they determine what's a boundary and what's not for what to say yes to and what isn't? Is it just like, okay, this is how I want to live my life, and because of that, we're gonna start making some boundaries and things like that, or how do you take them through that?
Yeah, Craig Ballantyne talks a lot about the conversation of building everything in business around your personal life.
Yeah.
So many people don't do that, and we can acknowledge that there's a moth in this.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and acknowledge that because it's flying around. But so many guys and so many people in business, they build the business first, and then everything takes a back seat.
Yeah.
And so, Craig would have you consider, Dan as well, myself as well, and countless others would say, as you start to structure your schedule, put everything that is personal and familial in first. Those are your priorities, first and foremost. And then around that, you structure margin and boundaries around the professional endeavors that you're looking to take on.
Yeah.
And as you do that, and as you start to build those muscles mentally, you'll start to recognize where there's extra bandwidth, where there are things that maybe you're not actually great at that can be delegated, automated, or even eliminated.
Yeah.
So that you can increase your capacity without increasing necessarily your distress load. So when you can start to find creative solutions to these kinds of problems, that actually builds your eustress, which is the same thing that you get whenever you're working out or you're in extracurricular activities with your significant other.
Yeah.
So for most of the people that I'm serving, and these are going to be founders and CEOs and C-level executives, entrepreneurs, really what we're looking at is, what do you want? What do you actually want? We really have to define what success is.
Yeah.
Not what this book told you it was, not what this podcast told you it was, not these people that you follow on social media that you think have a perfect life because all of their pictures are perfectly curated and they just look like they're crushing it. What do you actually want? At the end of this life, what do you want for yourself? What do you want your family to say about you? For me, I often think about who will be speaking at my funeral.
Yeah.
And what are they going to say about me? Nobody's going to care about the car that I drove. Nobody's going to care about the nice, watch on my wrist.
I care about it.
I know you do. Nobody's going to care about it. They're going to care about how you made them feel, the space that you created for them,
Yeah.
the ways in which you were present and available in times that they needed you. I measure success in this way. And again, there are a lot of different markers, but the primary for me is that if you go ask my family about me, that will tell you everything that you need to know about what I value and how I structure my life and my day to day. So, what do you really, really want? What do you really want? And then you have to recognize the gap that exists and who you're going to need to become in the process. And from there, it's very simple. It is taking that down to daily habit structures and utilizing identity confirmations. That's a big thing that we do versus dopamine driven results.
Yeah.
Right. So if you say you want to lose 20 pounds, that's cool, but then you have to keep it off. So that's why I like all of these like 50, 60, 75-day programs, like people fall off the wagon day 76 because you didn't change your identity.
Yeah.
So it's not that you want to lose 20 pounds. That's a great start. That's awesome. But more than that, you want to be an athlete. So if you take on the identity of an athlete, then athletes train every day. Athletes only eat certain foods. Athletes drink water. Athletes don't drink excessive amounts of alcohol or eat excessive amounts of sugar or other junk, right? They take care of their bodies. They get adequate sleep. They decrease cortisol as much as they can naturally. So that's your identity. You're a CEO. Well, great. Right now you're acting like a manager, right? So let's look at what a CEO at the level of at the growth level and trajectory that you're on. What do we need to be doing in 6 months from now? And how can we start to stair step that back into daily quantifiable objectives that you do today?
Yeah. And that reminds me of like what you said earlier, which is I'm a Jefferson and this is what Jeffersons do.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no emotional experience to it, which I think to some would make it feel like it's less sincere. But when you're not driven by emotional experience, you find that the confidence that you build isn't wavering on what other people think. It is consistent towards the results that you're creating in this life. Because again, a man is created to walk toward purpose. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Well, let me stop you real quick. Well, why do you think that's not glorified in today's day and age? Because I don't think, I mean, I agree with you, but
Sure.
like there's a lot of people out there that don't.
Culturally, we've lost what it is to be patient. We've
Agree.
lost what it is to delay gratification. So we want everything now. We can Amazon Prime anything, right? Everything is available in 2 to 3 days. You can make 6 figures in 6 days, 7 figures in 7 hours, right? You can lose your marriage by week 2, following depression by week 5, and hit rock bottom by week 8 and start all over with a new story of how you've overcome adversity. And there's no delayed gratification. Everybody wants everything now. And it's only through delaying that gratification and through building discipline that we find true freedom. People would look at my schedule and think, you have zero margin.
Yeah.
And I would have you consider that while you may believe that I have zero margin, I believe, and I look at my schedule and I look at my calendar and I look at all the time that is blocked off for family, and I look at all the time that's blocked off for me, and I look at the time that's blocked off for the endeavors that I'm a part of, and I see a roadmap to the vision of who I'm becoming. I see a man who has so much clarity in his life that he does not waste time, that every second is accounted for.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people are not at that stage, and because they're not at that stage, they get very upset about what the current realities of like their life is. And because you're very confident in who you are and your identity and what you want to do, like it is, I mean, I don't know if it's easy for you because you have a lot of discipline in order to keep that. But I think for a lot of people, because they aren't at that stage yet, I think like what you said right now, like a lot of people have the need for like instant gratification. I also think that a lot of people right now also want to be seen and heard immediately.
Sure.
And it's like all about them, to the point where, let's say men are struggling, like, and this is just a wild, kind of thing to throw out there. But basically, women can be on the same side and be like, well, I'm struggling too. And we can't just acknowledge the fact that like, hey, men right now are not being glorified for being, the best versions of themselves. In fact, we're not focusing too much on this issue or and how are you? I mean, to you, does it even matter to you? Because you're living in your own.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, I think we all have our soapboxes that we stand on, and I have mine.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is my world that I exist in that I am helping to move forward, and that's it. And
Yeah.
I've got blinders onto everything else.
Yeah.
I'm not really highly engaged in the news or in mainstream media or even social media. I have a team that handles all that. I don't have time to waste
Yeah.
on that. I've buried too many people. I've led too many funerals. I don't know what happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
None of us do. So I don't want to waste the time that I'm given and the breath that is in my lungs. I don't want to waste it because I know too many people who they don't ever get to take a breath again.
Yeah.
So why would I be so selfish as to worry about things that are outside of my control, to be disrespectful with the one body that I've been given,
Yeah.
to be disrespectful for a brain that has full capacity to learn and to implement and to grow, um, and to always be a learner, right? To always to walk into a room, not as here I am, but as there you are.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Like, we are so desperate to be known, but we'll settle every day for being seen.
Yeah.
Just see me, like me,
Yeah.
comment, share, heart, do the thing.
And is that why men are like kind of lacking that either accountability is that why they kind of dive into depression or things like that because they're not focused in their own box, like you mentioned, of like consistently growing on themselves?
Yeah, and I don't think that there's been a real roadmap for that.
A roadmap for what? For
To become the man that you're called to be.
yeah,
Right? Like, there's no real rite of passage for men now. I mean, everything is just, I mean, what is adulthood? Like, we don't have a draft. we don't have anything that really marks the conversion from boy to man.
yeah,
Right? You can vote, you can buy alcohol, you can go into the military, you can go to college, get a job. Like, what constitutes being a man now? Is it having a kid? Is it getting married?
yeah,
Like, what is it? And so and realistically, like, we've had a really, 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 really easy time. These past 50 to 75 years, we've not really experienced a lot of turbulence. Sure, we had like a little bit of a meltdown in 2008, but outside of that, and we had some stuff that happened over the past couple of years with some shutdowns and things, but we've not really had to come against anything.
right.
And we're so bored that we're creating imaginary wars with ourselves and we're creating things to fight about. Imagine a country that is so entitled and that things come so easily and that we have not had to fight for anything, that we will create divisiveness to fight against each other.
Yeah,
And so, for me, I'm going to fight for my home. I'm going to fight for truth. I'm going to fight for everyone not only being fully seen, but also fully known and fully loved. And because I love you enough to not leave you where you are, but to challenge you. Now, that comes with its own caveat because accountability that isn't asked for always feels like a threat.
yeah, 100%.
And so for anyone listening that you hear me and you're like, well, yeah, that's easy for you. You were born disciplined. Discipline is a habit that you build just like anything else. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, you know what? I really want to move forward. I just don't know how. And I don't know who I want to be. That's fine. I get that. I can remember being in that exact same spot. I just knew what didn't work anymore. And I can remember sitting on a floor alone by myself. My family was gone. And I had done everything I thought. I had done everything right. I prayed the right prayers. I gave the money to the right things. I gave people all of my time. I gave people everything. And I'm still sitting there like hating myself and wondering like, what else could I have done right? And sometimes it's not about doing what's right or wrong. It's about what's useful in the moment for you.
Yeah,
And so recognizing, man, what do you not want to feel anymore? And what's creating that feeling? What's creating that experience? Because if we can eradicate that, whether it be a relationship or an environment or a job or people around you, what's going on in your brain, if we can put some habits together, like and typically we start with fitness because why? Man, getting those endorphins going, getting your body healthy, getting your body in check. There's nothing that breeds confidence in man like being able to stand in front of a mirror naked and like what you see, you know? and you start chipping away at winning.
Yeah.
You start chipping away at accomplishment, but not accomplishment that is meaningless and hollow. You're building a healthy body, but that's also building a healthy mind. You build a healthy body and a healthy mind. Now you're able to lead your family more effectively. You're able to make more concise decisions. You start making those decisions on a more frequent basis. You build trust with yourself. And when you build trust with yourself, you build trust with others. Right? And so over time, we start to create this version of you that's unstoppable.
Yeah. And what's the difference between, because let's say somebody's listening in, right? They're like, okay, I need this in my life because, I've been going through, I'm in a hole, whatever it is. And they hear about Embrace the Lion and
Yeah.
they hear about the round table.
Yeah.
And they want to know which one is for them.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the both?
So Embrace the Lion is a group on Facebook. You can join it for free. You have to be a man, biologically. So we're just gonna, we're just gonna throw that out there. And so people ask me, like, why do you only coach men? It's like, because I only know how to be a man.
Right. That makes sense.
I am not going to be the guy that tries to tell a woman how to be a woman. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I might not be as smart as I think I am, but I'm definitely smarter than that.
Yeah.
And so it's a free community. You can join it at any time. And then Roundtable is specifically for men in business. So men who are in charge and in control of their finances and in control of how that grows. And so again, they're all believers. So it's not that.
Is that a requirement?
So it's not that it's a requirement. It's just I talk so much about faith, not like in a Sunday morning Bible study or anything, but I mean, it's at the forefront of everything that I do and who I am. So it's probably just not going to make sense, right? It's just going to feel a little off. And so it's high accountability. So we're looking at business infrastructure. We want to help you grow your business or grow your company. We also want to make sure that physically you are in the best shape of your life. So we track everything. We're partnered with the Starting Line, which is a company run by Aaron Nimmo and Cole Taylor. So you have a fully comprehensive app that runs you through all of your workouts, all of your diet, meal plan, macros, everything. You also strap on a MyZone heart monitor when you work out because we're tracking your heart rate. This is no joke.
Yeah.
We track your weekly date nights with your significant other. We track your weekly time with each of your kids, however many you have. There's so many KPIs that we are tracking inside of that game because we want to make sure that you're becoming the man that you say that you want to become.
Yeah.
And accountability does that. And camaraderie and celebration. So we celebrate. Men need celebration, right? And so if you're interested in Roundtable, you can go to ETL, which is Embrace the Lion, but etlroundtable.com, and you can learn more information. You can book a call, see if it's the right fit. If it's not the right fit, man, I know so many people inside of this space that I can refer you to, but I can almost guarantee you that if you are a kingdom-minded man in business with a family, and you're looking to go from good to great, not that things are bad right now. I get it. Like we're in Vegas. You're not out here, living a life of debauchery or anything else. It's just like things are just a little numb. They could be better, right? It's like, and for guys like us, man, I'm just going to be straight. Like for guys like us, most things come pretty easy and things have come pretty easily. And that's where a lot of men can find themselves in a real bind is because when things come easy, like your 60% is everyone else's 100%. And so you get used to coasting because it gets the job done and you get the attaboys and you get the, pats on the back, but it feels hollow because you're coasting.
Yeah.
And there was a time in your life when you didn't coast.
Yeah.
And
that hits so at home, dude.
And so it's like, man, I know there's more in the tank, but like if I'm left to myself, I'm not going to do it because I don't have the discipline and I don't have the accountability. One of the things that men do not factor in when they go into business for themselves is that you don't have a boss anymore. Nobody is riding you anymore. It is up to you.
Yeah.
And so when you can find the accountability of other men, because for the most part, we know what to do. We're just not doing it.
Yeah.
And man, you can start hitting 100% again. Think about, even if it's just 90% from the 60 you're at today, the level of confidence and certainty, the way that you lead your home, man, the way that your wife will look at you and love and support you, like it's worth everything.
Yeah. And you're so right. You're dead on, like you're right on the nail because for me, I agree with you on that. I'm like, I remember what it was like to be at 100 or to be at 90 and you're just a completely different person.
You're savage.
But it was out of necessity, And now it's like, okay, I can coast, I can delegate, I can do this type of stuff. I'm not moving at 100, but we're still growing, we're still doing all this type of stuff. But It's just getting to that place where you can be at 100. I feel like is difficult,
Yeah.
and that's where like people like you come in, right? Or
Yeah.
the community comes in. It's like it doesn't have to be as difficult. You don't have to do it by yourself. You can do it with all of us because
Right.
you're a living example of that.
Well, everybody wants to be on a winning team, especially men. Like we want to be on a winning team.
Yeah.
Like for most of us, though, we grow up and we become the people who wear other people's jerseys and watch football on Sundays and watch sports on the weekends. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to be the guy that's on the field of my life every single day. And I'm committed to the men that are around me. That's
Yeah.
my team. Those are my brothers. Like you fall, we're going to be there to pick you up. And likewise, right? Iron sharpens iron. And we move from having to do this out of necessity, right? Which is that whole fight or flight to, no, man, like, okay, so potential was this idea of an expectation that I have to live up to.
Yeah.
And so it's fight or flight. I got to prove it. I got to prove it. I got to prove it. When there comes the point where there's nothing to prove, hide, or protect anymore, now we get to recognize that potential is now like this promise that we get to live from.
Yeah.
And now it's not I have to, it's I can.
Yeah.
And if I can, and it meets the requirements and it fits within the parameters and it does help me to get to where I say that I want to be, and it doesn't infringe on the boundaries of my family, my personal, or my spiritual life, bro, let's rock and roll.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a there's a big difference in getting people to where, someone is in fight or flight mode, so they want to join this because they fucking have to, for one.
Yeah.
And then number two, it's like you're seeing a lot of the guys that are coasting and they need a brotherhood and they want to move to the next level, but like they kind of want it, I'm assuming this one is harder to kind of get people to move towards because they're moving towards their potential, but like life is good.
Yeah.
Is it a lot harder to kind of get men to commit from that angle, or because they are already high performers?
Yeah.
It's just they kind of have to like dedicate themselves to another level.
Yeah. So I would say yes and no. I think, in some of our initial conversations, yeah, there's a nurture process that happens, right? Because there's some ego that comes into play for a lot of guys, especially when you're, and we can use the word alpha or high performer or whatever. Like there is this idea that I'm not really sure that like what you have can help me. And so then we just look at the track record and we look at results.
Yeah.
Right? Because the internet can lie. You know what I mean? But there are a few things that don't. Results don't lie.
Yep.
Numbers don't lie. A scale doesn't lie. A bank account doesn't lie. There are certain things that don't lie.
Yeah.
And so when we can lay that on the table and we can say, hey, listen, yeah, things are good. But if I look at your track record and I look at where you were 5 years ago, because we're on a call talking about this, and I look at where you're at now, and then I look at the growth trajectory that you have over the next 12 months if nothing changes versus where you could be, which one's more appealing to you?
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, anybody can be good. That's fine. Anybody can be great for a short amount of time. But let me ask you this, like at the end of this life, what do you want your kids to say? Dude, my dad, he went all in. He didn't talk about it. He didn't talk about what I needed to do in sports from the sideline, 25 pounds overweight, talking about what he did 20 years ago in high school and how he could have took state, right? No, he was on the mat with me. He was on the field with me. All of my friends thought he was a superhero. My dad showed me what it is. Like my dad took such extraordinary risk. And he walked with me through it. He showed me like when I'm stressed, I talk to Stetson about it. Because he'll ask, like, you stressed? I'm like, I am. He's like, what's up? I'm like, well, I've never been here before. And here's what's happening inside of some of these companies. And here's some of the problems that I'm looking to solve. And his response is, well, it's a good thing Jefferson solved big problems, right?
Yeah.
Because this is just who we are. It's what we do. Is that my dad set the bar on how to love my mom or how to love his wife,
Yeah.
right? And even in co-parenting, we set the standard, his mother and I, and we didn't set out to do that. It's just, we have one big happy, we just didn't work out married. We're great friends. And there will never be a negative word that I say about her. And there will be never a negative word that she says about me, right? Because we set the standard. Is that the frame that you want at the end of this life? Or do you want, yeah, I mean, my dad was around, like he was always stressed and like it was always somebody else's fault. And like he did all right. Like I don't ever remember him taking any risk or anything. Like he had a business and he worked all the time. God, I think he was more married to that business than our family. And I wish he could have been present for a few more things, but I understand like he had to provide and he needed to do what he felt was best for the business and um so things were good. Which one do you want? You get to pick either one. That's the beauty of life. You get to pick. And every day you set a standard. What standard are you setting?
Dude, powerful message. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But fuck, we were just getting right into
We're
the
just
zone,
rolling.
dude. I know. Yeah, you're really good at this. And honestly, it's always good when I have guests on because
Yeah.
I get to learn something every time, and shit, things yeah, I need to be reminded of things sometimes. And it's great that I get to speak to people like you, on a daily basis and kind of learn from you because I respect you a lot as a man. I respect you a lot as a father, right? Like when I was first having my kid, you congratulated me,
Yeah.
and I look at all the stuff that you do for your son, and I'm like, I want to be there for my daughter, and I don't want to be married to my business like you were mentioning.
Right.
Um, so I'm with you. I like what you do and what you have to say, and that's why I have you on for a second time. Fuck it, let's do another one.
Let's go.
But I appreciate your time. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find. You can find me at codyjefferson.com. You can find me on all major social media platforms. Just look for the blue check. I'm not going to sell you crypto or other endeavors in your inbox. So just make sure you look for the right one. Pretty easy to find. You can Google my name.
Perfect, dude. Well, I appreciate you being on the show.
Appreciate you.